Hello. Hi, Klara.
Hi, Diane.
Here I am in Tucson, Arizona, actually outside in the desert, and Klara Wojtkowska is over in Poland, in Warsaw, right?
Yeah, Warsaw, the capital.
In the capital. And I'm here to interview Klara, to interview you about your book, Wild Medicine, A Journey to Zimbabwe. I am interviewing you as the producer from Temple Sublime Productions. Our mission is to find people, artists and otherwise like yourself, and to promote their work, people whose work is like creations that are like treasure maps that take us back to the enchanted realms of our birthright. And as this interview unfolds, you'll understand more the purpose of that. So Klara is a musician, a playwright, an actress. She is a traditional medicine person, and she puts all of these things together in a beautiful way. She's written many plays. She's had many plays performed and produced here in the United States and in Zimbabwe, Tanzania. So what we're going to focus on, though, today is her book. And the book is, oh boy, it's very vast. And it's actually a very extraordinary book, I found, and extremely rich, and can be read over and over in order to keep extracting all of the meanings that she's woven into it. And I think being a musician reflects in her writing style and in her plays. And in that way, it's just like music, it's worthy of listening to over and over. It has that kind of beauty, that kind of poetry, but it also is a story, an intimate and very compelling story of her own healing journey. I won't go on and on because it's really, the real feeling of the book is in reading it. It's not a difficult read, and it is not a very long read. So my question to you, Klara, is what is wild medicine, and how is that relevant today during this time of COVID-19, where the whole world now is having to think about these things, illness altogether? And how does this also relate to A Journey to Zimbabwe? And how can people relate to that as well?
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you, Diane. And thank you so much for your kind words about my book. It is a huge satisfaction for any author to hear that their book touches somebody in a good way, So the book, let me just say a bit about the story itself, the story of the book, which came from an illness that I had, or what we call an illness. I had a severe, what was called an autoimmune disease for years. And it changed, and it had a lot of different diagnoses. So initially it was diagnosed as juvenile rheumatoid arthritis when I was 12 years old. And then as I got older, I had different diagnoses. I had different side effects to medications. I had different effects, just different symptoms. And the book starts from the place where I was at. I think I was about 28 years old at the time. And I had the worst reflare of the illness that I had ever had. And it was a point where I made a decision, and it was a fairly conscious decision at the time, which was that this pain in my body is not what I have been told by the medical establishment that it is. Of course, we can speak different languages. We can say, well, this is the scientific language around it. But I decided that in terms of my life, there was this thing that was keeping me from being able to move, even from being able to walk, from being able to play the violin. Like you said, I'm a musician. And I was being presented a story. I was being presented a story of, this is what it means for the rest of your life. This is how you will live. This is what you will have to put up with. This is your prognosis. This is your life. This is what you're given. But there was another feeling inside of me, a deeper feeling that said that I am meant for something completely different.
Which is a lot of people have.
Yes, exactly. Which is really the first empowerment of, let's say, a patient, to be the one to ascribe meaning to what is happening to them. And that's the first power that we take back, the first way of taking back our lives when our life is so completely crippled by something as horrendous as an illness. So if we look at the situation now, what we see is, in a way, global disempowerment, a global case of people now being told, you have to sit in your homes. We don't know for how long. We're taking away your jobs. We're taking away all of the meanings that you had for living before. And I know so many people, and myself included, who have gone through that exact experience within the medical establishment, let's say, which is why at some point in the book I say that people should look to the wisdom of the people who know chronic illness, especially in a time like this. How do you take back your soul when the official story and the officials have just told you, we are taking away your life as you know it, all the things that you have thought were meaningful. So I don't know if that answers some of your questions.
No, it does. And I think that what struck me in the book is that, and how it could be relevant to anybody too, is the extraordinary courage that it takes to take that journey, that healing journey, on whatever level, because you also cover mental illness, and we know that there's an epidemic of depression in the world, and that try as the medical establishment does, and this isn't to say there isn't a place for it, and you do say that in the book, and they do try to solve these great sufferings that are going on, but within the paradigm that they have, it's not really working to the extent that it could. It's just, like you said, it's more of a condemning people to a certain life that is really, feels like a damnation. For example, if you have migraine headaches like I have, and there is no real solution within the medical solution, and now more and more there's just very destructive drugs. And same with, so for example, if a person feels that suffering and they're denying their own dreams, I think your book shows how that answering and being able to listen to, and the insistence of the illness that won't let you not do that, that it keeps returning, not because there's been a failure of, in a sense, there is a failure of the allopathic system or the medicine as we practice in the Western world, but the insistence is trying to get you to listen to yourself. So you went to Zimbabwe because that's where it took you, and against a lot of opinions of many other people who were important to you in life for affirmation. And so people, I think, can have that call for courage within their own life. And so if you could speak to that in some respects, even in terms of like your brother, Alexander, how people can handle the difficulty of this journey, of taking on that healing journey and the initiations that it requires. And what is initiation?
Well, that's a lot of questions. Yeah, but I absolutely hear you. Yeah, it's I definitely hear what you're saying, that well, any journey, healing or not, it requires courage, and a huge amount of trust, which is, at least in my feeling and in my journey, I had to trust the spirit, the big spirit, the big love, that my feeling of what I am meant for is different than what I'm being told, and certainly that takes courage. It takes a lot of courage, but in a way, I'm just trying to think. I'm trying to feel into what you said, and in a way, it's a very natural kind of courage, because if we think of the absurdity of somebody else, another person, another paradigm standing in front of you, and again telling you, this is possible, this is not possible. How do they know? Who are they to know? You know, that you could say a very traditional wisdom approach of God is God, people are people. A person can't tell you what the possibilities are, and what is very how do I say, it's like if you think only along the medical paradigm also, and you go and you ask the doctor, what will be possible for me, what will not be possible for me, what you're also doing is you're closing yourself off to the other paradigms that are opening up before you while other paradigms are closing. So you're closing your imagination, you know. For me, it is true that I had dreams about going to Zimbabwe, where I was told I need to go to Zimbabwe. And I was told that even if I think that I won't go to Zimbabwe, I will go to Zimbabwe. My dreams were very funny. My ancestors are very funny like that. They make fun of me because I'm very serious. And I write about that in the book. But the thing is, at the time, I couldn't go to Zimbabwe, because when you can't move, when you can't get out of your bed, when I didn't really even have a stable place to live, and certainly income was a huge issue. All these things are happening, and then you have a dream that says you have to go to Zimbabwe. The first thing that I did was not go to Zimbabwe. The first thing was even to trust that voice, and go step by step along the possibilities that were being opened in front of me, step by step, until I could finally go to Zimbabwe. You know, what that means is, the first thing that happens is we pay attention. Instead of thinking according to, this is what I can and can't do, this is what my life will look like, there's a sudden sense of something is happening to me. So if we think even right now, what is happening with the virus, and we're getting so many different prognoses from so many different experts, and people who say, well, I know this and I know that, and this is what it is, and this is what it is, and this is what it will be. But the first thing that, in a sense, is global is that we are all told, stop, listen. What do you feel? What is in front of you? What is around you? Who is around you? And that noticing and tuning in and refining our senses so that the language of our life becomes more intimate, more feeling oriented. That road unfolds until I mean, in a way, you could say the life becomes the road. People say, well, you know, we get to where we want to go, but I don't know. Life is a journey. So what does it mean to get to where we want to go? Yeah.
Right. Yes, I think what you're speaking to is how I really appreciate how you are showing how the microcosm of it, what you went through by going through the medical system and what the world is right now is very insightful. And how is it that you can define wild medicine as, through your own journey, and which by this listening that you're talking about that we can do, taking us back out of a state where, when everything was going as normal, our lives are very prescribed, and we keep being carried along by the velocity of life as we know it. But with this shutdown of everything, there's an opening, and this is what I'm hearing you say. And through that opening, there's a way for this different type of medicine, which it seems in your book you've talked about as wild medicine. And I'm going to see if I can find this quote here from your book. Mm-hmm. Wild medicine was the gradual magic that moved me out of my life as a cripple into a life as a fully embodied person, whose body became a home not just to myself, but to ancestors and plant spirits and animal spirits, and my voice and music and myself. And I think what you just said about being able to listen and have that communication and the empowerment that comes with that, as you were referring earlier, is something that people can do right now. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And but can you say more about wild medicine? I mean, you also go on to say wild medicine splits any and all rules. It breaks apart the bureaucracy and patterns and expectations that are laid on both sides, healers and patients. That is why it lives a life of no statistics. It is also as personal and intimate in its love, as personal and intimate as is the humiliation you experience at the hands of a system, any system really. And you go on to say even the alternative systems, that this wild medicine is beyond even alternative medicine systems.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, if we look at our way of thinking about disease, and we see the root of the way of thinking that we have, which is this very materialistic way of thinking, and very not just systematized, but also isolated, where we isolate certain elements, and then we treat it even the way that we do school or any kind of human system of following rules. Things should happen a certain way. And what I discovered on my journey, you know, of course, people discover all kinds of different things on their own journeys, but what I discovered on my journey is that is the fundamental flaw in the root of the thinking. So even as we bring alternative medicine systems into our, let's say, mandala of medicine, that we have available to us. Whether it's Chinese medicine, traditional Chinese medicine, whether it's plant medicines, whether it's herbalism, whether it's Ayurveda, whether it's allopathic medicine. We have all these systems, and we are told when we go through mysterious illnesses, well, you know, you're not doing the right things, right? So if we go to the traditional Chinese medicine doctor and we do that for a while and it doesn't work, and somebody says, well, of course you've been doing the wrong thing, you have to go see this Ayurvedic practitioner, and then they say, oh, you've been doing all the wrong things, and all the time we are being told what to do, and there's an oppression in that. Because that flaw in the system, at no point does the system open to the spirit. At no point. You know, we as a civilization are so committed to ignoring the spirit that it's actually quite amazing. You know, even in herbalism, I mean, we have all of these you know, native healers and the African healers and the South American healers, all of these and their wisdom traditions that say over and over again, for example, it is just as important. The herb is important. How you pick the herb is important. Did you sing a song to the plant spirit? Did you talk to the plant spirit? Did you give thanks to the plant spirit? All of these things affect the medicine. And still, despite all of that, we still want to ignore the fact that there is the body of the plant and there is the spirit of the plant. Same thing with, you know, for me, for example, what I've tried to ignore for a long time in my healing journey, or maybe also out of my ignorance, my human ignorance, because I didn't know, I couldn't know, was that I was being called into a very specific paradigm, the Shona culture of Zimbabwe. I was being called directly there. And in the Shona culture, ignoring the spirit is madness, because the traditional healer is only a healer when the spirit comes, the healing spirit, the ancestor spirit. When that spirit comes, that is who does the healing, or what does the healing. And in that sense, there's the human knowledge, but human knowledge is powerless and empty unless it is empowered by the spirit. And once you start working with the spirit of the thing, then you also discover that the spirit of the thing is very spontaneous and doesn't necessarily think the way that humans do, doesn't put all of these barriers and rules about how it should or should not function. You know, that's where, again, we have this, the traditional idea of ceremony, which is practiced regularly, and where all things come together. Who you like, who you don't like, what you agree with, what you don't agree with. It comes together because there's an acknowledgement that there's a place for everything in the world. Meaning, if you are really sick, if you have a terrible migraine headache and you're far away from home, and you, I don't know, you talk to the spirit, or you say, you know, you have a desperate prayer of, man, I really need help, and somebody offers you some Tylenol, and you say, no, but this isn't, you know, of the earth, or this isn't the way that I imagined my healing. But maybe your spirit just needs you to feel better right now so you can drive home. Maybe that person who offered you Tylenol is going to become your new best friend. And that's how relationships are made. And there's another journey there, and there's another story and another thread. And it becomes very vibrant and exciting, because it's based on this listening and the tuning in of it's the dance, the rhythm of it, you know, the melody of it, the song of it. Yeah.
You know, what you're saying reminds me of, I think it's towards the end of the book, where actually throughout, but the idea of relationship, like you just said, and how the whole, it's not like a cure for somebody's malady is going to be this item that is without a context of everything else, that it's actually a building, a reconnecting of, and a, not just reconnecting, but a creating of relationships. And that there is, there's something so individual about each person's experience. So it's difficult to prescribe something and say, oh, this is going to work for everybody. Mm-hmm. Just like even with this virus right now, some people are completely asymptomatic, whereas others die within 24 hours. Mm-hmm. And one has to wonder, you know, we're not just these uniform machines. But can you speak a little bit about that? Because you were also, and I hate to bring this to a close, and we have a little bit more time, but yeah, if you could talk about that relationality and perhaps even the storytelling part of illness, and how even for you, Mondoro, the lion, and how that, you know, how that became part of your understanding and your healing, and how you actually have healed in great part, or maybe that healing is continuing.
Yeah, and I think that that's where it's a good question. I mean, relationality, relationship is, even you could say, the big calling of even this time, the paradox of it. But then of course, spirit very often presents itself in paradox, absolute paradox, irony, things that don't make sense to the mind. We're all locked away, isolated, cut off from each other. This is the time to build relationship, because one of the big forgettings of our civilization is the forgetting of community, the forgetting of building and keeping up relationship and bonds. From a traditional standpoint, that is not just with people. People are not the only ones that we have relationships with, and they are not even the most important ones that we build relationships with on this planet. From the perspective of, again, the traditional perspective, I mean, and of course the African perspective, we have the ancestors, and we are in constant relationship and conversation with them. We are in constant relationship and conversation with the earth. We walk, just the fact that we walk, my foot touches the earth, that's relationship. So you can't, how do I say? So building those relationships, at least for me, was a big part of healing. Ultimately, because I was called into a very specific paradigm where even the whole initiation process is really about, you could say, tuning the ancestral spirit with the human being and the body of the human being. And what that means is that I feel my body completely differently now. And like you said, I've healed, which is not to say that I haven't had breaks in that healing, specifically because the tuning of the spirit and the body at certain points wasn't, you could say, as I don't know. It was a whole initiation process, and it's not. Sometimes it is not easy, even within traditional mindsets. It's not that every healer makes it through their initiation, and it is not that every initiation is successful. But the ultimate goal of harmonizing is where healing happens. But then also healing. It's a you know, what does that mean exactly? Well, anyway, that's
I,
a whole other subject.
I think actually that's a very and we can leave on this in that to tune the spirit just like a stringed instrument, that it takes that listening, it takes that attunement to something other than yourself. There's that relational, and it does make me think about all the discord in the world right now in terms of all the wars and how this virus may have expressed itself. Not saying it's directly a result of that, but that all the disharmonies and that healing is a process if we can simplify it down at all, because it is simple in a certain sense, that it's learning to attune and to harmonize ourselves to our spirit, to our soul, and to the people and the plants and everything around us. I mean, just like you think about how disruptive it is when a disturbed person comes charging into a room and brings their anger, and what the room and the people have to do to adjust to try to include whatever that person is carrying. You could, maybe an illness arrives, like an angry spirit that needs to be heard, like, why are you so angry? Or somebody who's badly wounded, you know, and to think of it in that terms is, instead of, oh, how can we eradicate this person or this disease, or get some radiation or some chemotherapy or vaccine and let's just abolish it and try to put it out, that ultimately that doesn't work, as we've seen played out also in the disharmonies, like you're saying, with peoples and lands where there's wars that go on and on and on. It needs to be heard. And our ancestors as well. Some people, yeah, there may be some unrest, some things that just because they passed in body doesn't mean that their spirits still have something to resolve, and that they need that relationship with us in order so that they can rest, and we can rest.
That's true. That's true. I would also, I would also add that our idea, even these days, of ancestors as simply the ones to lay to rest, also doesn't quite account for the really wonderful, even reality of the fact that they are very happy to be on this journey with us and support us on the journey, and that they enjoy it. If you look at a lot of ceremonies, even the traditional Polish ceremonies that are done for the ancestors, it's a space where we enjoy each other. We enjoy each other's company, because what connects all of us, and what connects the building of relationship, what connects us across even the divide of death, is love. So that idea of even the joy and the taking pleasure of, because I think when a lot of people think about their ancestors, they think, you know, it's people I didn't know. They did maybe bad things, maybe people I wouldn't even enjoy being around. Okay, now I have to lay them to rest. It's my healing work. I'm going to lay them to rest. I'm going to tell them to go away. And then maybe they don't want to go away. Maybe they're very happy to stick around because they love you. Because they, and to have that support, to have that bedrock of knowing also, I am here for a reason. I am the son or the daughter of powerful ancestors, yeah, powerful beings, and they are with me, and they support me. And again, that's a reclaiming of reason, of meaning, which feeds our spirit. And when our spirit is fed, our body is fed as well. So then, you know, there's more of that holistic health aspect. There's so much we can go through and survive and get over if we have meaning, if we see the bigger picture, if we have connection. And I think that's another thing, yeah, I try to write all of that. I don't know if all of that.
You know, it actually,
Book.
here, I'm going to,
Yeah.
oh, you could, you put it. Yes, actually hold that up because I have a copy, but it's all tagged. So this is the book, and I highly recommend it. Like I said, it actually does cover all the things that we talked about and even more. And you can get it on Amazon. So we'd love to know what you think of it. Please put a review, and good luck these days. I hope this inspires you and gives you hope and great joy, like Klara was saying, that actually this is a tremendous opportunity for all of us. Thank you, Klara. Thank you for your book. Thank you for the tremendous effort and love and courage and spirit that you have. It just, your book and your artistic works are such a testament to a human being who has such great love to be able to put that together in order to share it. And that definitely comes through in your work and in this book. So I think your book itself is like great medicine. It is for me. I pick it up, I reread it. It continually helps me to reconnect to my own ability for meaning making and encouragement that my life does matter and that it's doing. Yes. So
well, thank you so much, Diane, and thank you so much for your work as well. And yeah, you can find the book on Amazon, Wild Medicine: A Journey to Zimbabwe. You can also find on my website, which is either dancingfox.net or masibanda.net, and you know, or on Facebook or whatever, if you have any other questions or you want to see my other work. And Diane, you can find Diane at Temple Sublime Productions. They're making very exciting grand theater spaces out in the desert in Arizona. Yeah, so thank you. Well, thank you so much for this interview, Diane.
Oh, you're so welcome, and I'm excited for what's going to come next, what your next book might be as well. All right, thank you, Klara.
Bye.